Hello and welcome to the February 17th meeting of the Lower Makefield Township Ad Hoc Property Committee meeting. My name is Dennis Stedman, the committee chair. We have 5 of our 7 committee members present, so we have a quorum and we're going to get started. I expect the others to join us shortly, and welcome to everyone. If I could, well, everyone's name is on the screen. Let's not do the intros. That becomes awkward. Everyone knows the names via Zoom. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of our January 27th meeting. For that, I'll turn it over to Beth as our secretary.
Yes, everyone should have received the minutes from Katie. At this point, I'd entertain a motion for them to be approved.
Second.
I think you have a motion and a second.
All those in favor?
Aye. All right.
Minutes of January stand approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Our agenda tonight is a full one. The next item is discussion of a proposal on the Slack House, which was put together by Mike Atara of Spirit Golf. Before we turn it over to Mike, I just want to say that I want to slide the agenda around just a little. After the Slack House, we will then, which is number 3, we'll then go to number 5, discussion of recommendations, report and outline. And then we'll go into the top 3 priorities. So I'm just switching item 4 and item 5 around on the agenda, if that's all right with everyone. So Michael, welcome to the ad hoc committee meeting. We've had a few informal discussions, and what we'd like tonight is to take 10-15 minutes, discuss the proposal, the concept that you presented to us in written form. Everyone on the committee has seen that, and after you have a chance to articulate that, then answer questions that committee members might have. Does that sound good?
Sounds good, Dennis. Yes, thank you, everybody. Good to be here and to take a little time to talk about the Slack House and how the property is situated around the golf course, and how we may think about that property and use it in a functional manner that would be kind of consistent with, I think, what the committee and the town might be interested in seeing. We've spent some time on this over the past years with the historical committee and just on our own, just kind of conceptually thinking about, the value of the home and the property and how it situates for our needs for additional banquet space, our needs for being able to have a place for private meetings. The existing clubhouse, for those who are not familiar, and we invite everyone to always come to the clubhouse. So just, please do. It's your clubhouse for the public. That property is a very open concept room. So a lovely space, but kind of an open and it doesn't lend to just having banquets in that space. Over the years, we've spent some time developing a outdoor pavilion and tented area that's been very well received and has provided us an opportunity to create banquets and weddings and opportunities like that for larger events. And then this concept, would take that to the next level. It would be taking, what I think people are looking for with the farm style open concept with an additional building that we would look to develop behind the existing home and use that space to be able to host weddings private functions. So that is basically the concept. In talking with Dennis and thinking through how one might go about creating this public-private enterprise, it certainly is a situation where there would be some substantial cost on both ends to try to develop this, but hopefully with a good return on investment. We think this type of facility is needed in the area. Lower Makefield doesn't have anything quite like it, and we think it would be well received. And certainly we can see demand, and some of the things we have currently, we just don't have the facilities to host. So we kind of lend to hosting larger events, having rooms, having bathrooms, having space to meet would be a much improved from what we have today.
Mike, could you maybe step back just a notch and just articulate what you have envisioned as to how the Slack House is utilized in the context of this space that you're talking about, for maybe those who aren't familiar with your proposal? Just start from scratch.
Yeah, so as we look at the house, as you drive up the driveway, the Slack House is to your right, entering the property. Across from it is our pump house and an older barn that you can see in on the driveway as you enter. It kind of sets the tone for the property and where you're entering. And behind the Slack House, there's a patio, a well, and a small wooded area. The home is directly alongside the 18th fairway, so the property is basically facing up on the golf course. So you get beautiful views, beautiful vistas. Hold on one sec. Hey, Kyle. Sorry about that. So the property is set so that we can potentially position another building right behind the house. So the idea with the home itself, as you walk in, there's two kind of great rooms that you walk into, one on the left, one on the right. The one on the right kind of steps down, interesting room with a big fireplace. One on the left, a little more open, a little more lit and airy type room. But both those rooms could lend well for bridal suites, for parties, for private events, and that type of space. So very, very lovely rooms that we think, if a potential bride and groom walked in, would see that as very valuable. And then, from there, as you would enter towards the what is now the kitchen, we would see that area as being kind of an open area that would open up to the new building, and there would be an area that would allow us to create some space between the patio and the building. So you have a little bit of outdoor space, some covered walkway to the new building, and that building then kind of backs into the existing parking lot. So the access to the building will be fairly easy because we're right up against the parking lot. Obviously, one of the challenges would be kind of tying back to the number of parking lots available. I don't know if that's hearing a lot of background noise. So conceptually, I don't know if Dennis, if you have the images that I provided that you want to put up on the screen at all, or might be able to walk through that a little bit, or we can talk a little bit more through some of the ideas of You're on
I
mute.
don't have those images propped up. I mean,
Okay.
if you have something you want to share, you can certainly share screen.
Okay.
But I don't have it right here, I don't think.
I could
No.
probably find it. If you want, oh, there you
There you go.
Thank you.
go.
I am muted.
Yeah, just stay muted now. Thanks.
This is the concept of an affordable pole barn that would be the new building behind that, behind the Slack House as the main event space.
Exactly. So this would be a 60 by 90 foot span building, open style. Something that can be set up so that it can be used multifunctional, have bars, different bar setups. A lot of stuff could be on wheels and could be set up in many different configurations. So
What would the capacity of that be, Mike?
so something like this.
Mike, if somebody else in the house is listening to this, it's within earshot of your microphone. I think that's where the feedback's coming. Either
Yep, I got you. We got to figure that
listen to it later, or move further away.
out. Yes, we got it worked out.
Okay.
This could hold potentially in the 250 range, depending on configuration, style building, facility. So it gives you ample room, ample space. The one that we're showing, with the garage doors, don't necessarily have to be exactly what's in the image. It was just a similar size and type of facility that we would think would fit well in there. And then keeping to the facade of the new building, trying to keep it within the barn style concept. So we just chose one that had a similar facade that would have some type of barn look to it. And you can imagine out the back we do have some patio space. The well would be maybe off to the left there. So not going into real conceptual drawings here. This give you a pretty good idea of what you might be looking at as you enter the facility.
Questions for Mike?
Sure, I've got one. I guess I don't think that you mentioned this in the report too much, obviously, because we asked for conceptual, but I'm curious if you've had any customer inquiries about using space like this, or where kind of these ideas coming from?
Well, two places really. I mean, we know the market, we know what's out there. My partner, John Goki, who I reference in the document, he's built a couple of these in New Jersey. So he has, some background with this type of program, catering facility. And we're hosting currently a tented venue at the property. One of the always challenging parts of that is having true facilities, bridal suites, bathrooms, places to get ready for a wedding, be able to be separated from the party and move into the party. So having those two rooms in the house would provide a lot of that functionality that you just can't do with a tented facility. So it really takes it up to that next level of event space that we'd be looking for.
Michael, what's the parking requirement for this? So I think the concept was to utilize what's there, or is there some overlap between when the course would be open, when the events would be?
Yeah, I mean, let me put it this way. There's certainly going to be a need for additional parking. And again, what we have learned from being there and running events in the tent is, the timing is important. The golfers are coming in, for throughout the morning and early afternoon hours, and then they're generally coming in 2s and 4s, so they generally don't use up all the parking, so we usually have enough parking for our events now, and then as the day goes on and the events continue through an evening, the parking lot's emptying out as people are coming in. So it is a function of timing, but certainly as you enlarge this space, the need for more parking would be there. And there is room. I mean, it may take some serious looking at planning and engineering here to kind of decide how that space could be used. But we do have some space in the maintenance area. We have some space in front of the house. There could be some tow-in parking down the driveway. So there's definitely options there. I am not an engineer or a planner, so I'm not going to speak to that today. But I think it's one of those that, seeing what could be is kind of the important next step of what this could look like.
What size events do you have currently in the tent?
The tents, we'll do mostly, 120 to 150 is kind of max in that tent right now. So it's a 60 by 40 tent with an outside patio that we can kind of expand outward. So undercover, you're generally, 120 is probably a comfortable setup with, if you're having buffet lines or bands or dance floors, that type of thing.
And Michael, how many of those events did you have in 21? Say, 120 people.
We hosted about, there was about 80 events this year hosted. Inside the tent was probably about 30 of those, ranging from golf outings to weddings. So, and everything in between, bar mitzvahs and,
Right.
Birthday parties, you name it. So again, the space, has to be something that is, can be adjusted. You want to have a space that you can host a party for 50 and you don't feel like you're in a big empty room, and you want a space that you can put a larger group in.
Okay.
Hey, Michael?
Yeah, but
Hey, is the barn going behind the house back by the patio?
the barn going, say again?
The
Yeah, the
barn,
configuration. Yeah, so
yeah,
so as
yeah,
you,
so it's behind it.
it would be right behind the house. Yeah, there's and it's a little deceiving. It's a fairly large area because there are some trees there.
Yeah.
So you have the patio space that's fairly large, and then you step up. And we kind of looked at it, keep the patio intact. So that's why we created that walkway through. And it still would fit within that footprint between the parking lot and the patio.
Okay, so Mike, when we were there touring the Slack House, we were all worried about our car windshields getting pummeled with golf balls.
From where?
And we from the 18th tee, and so I'm wondering if you thought about that or
Well, the design of the 18th hole is such that the layup, there's a creek there that runs through. The layup is well before the parking lot. So your second shot is the shot into the green. And I could tell you, after 12 years of being there, I've not had a window claim in that parking lot. Yeah, so it's it does, not that it can't happen, certainly can, but we have not had it's not like it's an everyday occurrence kind of thing. This is something that's, when they design the hole kind of shapes a little bit away from the parking lot. So it's designed to get the golfer to aim the other way, not towards the parking lot.
that would be good.
Yes.
You might also want to configure the 18th fairway just a little to the right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Because we were there and they were coming in on the right side of the house.
Yeah, that's not where the parking will be, where we were parking, bet.
Oh, no,
no, you
No,
wouldn't
it'd be
put the
back,
park-
it's behind,
behind the barn.
it's not in front of the slack house. I mean, that's a high risk, but, yes.
Yeah, in front of the house, yes, that would be a little, you would definitely need some type of netting or something if you put parking in front.
Okay, so that's not where we're talking about.
No. The parking lot that's directly behind the kind of where the tent is today would be, I would think, where you'd want to expand the parking into the tented area
Okay.
to create some more space. You know, you got,
Because the brides aren't going to like getting hit by golf balls, so I'm just
no, I don't
want
think
that in the back.
I don't think so. No, again, I'm not a planner, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's one of those things that I think has to be evaluated, very much on the front end. All of this, I think I was very careful in my wording as far as next steps and kind of what it would take, and and is this even something that's viable?
Okay.
It's certainly something to look at, I think.
No, and
Okay,
I think you were very clear. I mean, these are concepts, they're not plans. There's concepts, and if they are of interest, then plans can be developed, and then decisions made. But conceptually, there is a market in our area for this type of venue. Conceptually, this venue, I think, would be well occupied and generating revenue for the township. Do you have any rule of thumb or broad concept as to what kind of revenue this facility here, an event venue, as you've outlined, associated with, attached to the Slack House, what kind of revenue would that generate after a couple of years of maturity?
Again, Dennis, early, just kind of in the early stages, and just looking at, we look at everything in the marketplace as far as percentages and, percentage of return on investment. We've seen these type of facilities do, well over, $2 million a year, and we wouldn't think that would be a hard get for a facility of this style. So if you're in a $2 million range, you're looking at a 25% ROI on something like this. EBITDA could be $500,000 on something of this extent.
I'm sorry, Jim, were you about to ask a question when I jumped in?
Sure. Michael, I saw the concept, and again, recognize it's concept only, right? But I saw you kind of proposed it would be kind of a joint participation with the township and Spirit as far as money coming in and revenue. Is there a reason you gravitated towards that versus, say, just a simple land lease and no outlay from the township?
It's certainly one of those situations where I think there's an interest in from the township's perspective to best utilize these buildings and these facilities, and it seemed to make sense that both parties would have a hand in seeing this through. So I think that was probably more the thinking, that this would be something that why would we want to take on all of that with this house? I'm not a historical home builder or engineer, so there's a lot going on with this house, and it's not something I would say I would do or be interested in doing on the front end. But if the town, obviously you have this committee and you have a lot of knowledgeable people, that could figure out as far as what the cost would be to do the renovation to the home, which provides the community with this property for the long term. And we build new buildings in the past and done some renovation work, but not historical. So I wouldn't be, it just wouldn't be something I think we would be looking at.
So Mike, your ballpark estimate for the new building, not for the cost of the Slack House renovation, is how much? What's your ballpark number?
We're ballparking them, somewhere in that $1.5 million range.
Okay, so if
and again, I'm being very cautious with my wording, because today $1.5 million could be 2.5 real quick. And
I mean, we I know we're dealing with numbers without specific plans, which means the numbers are ballparkish at best.
But
let's say that the new building is $1.5 million. We have early estimates on the Slack House that says that could be renovated, the building saved, the building repaired, and renovated for this type of use somewhere between 900,000 and 1.5 million, depending on a lot of particulars, right? And so it could, the cost of the Slack House renovation / restoration, because it'd be renovated, to some degree consistent with the period and in terms of the exterior minimum, that those two investments are probably in the same ballpark between what the Slack House would cost and what the new venue would cost. And it's that nut put together that needs to get paid back. Both parties need some return on that.
Sure.
And I'm sure with long-term leases and the right kind of agreements, that type of thing seems doable or feasible at least. Doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, because it depends on the detail, but to me it passes the feasibility test. How do others feel? What are others?
Dennis, my I guess caution would be I'd be wary of the township. And Michael, you to no background in the historical renovation. I guess I would say the township, unless anyone thinks I'm speaking out of turn here, we really don't have anything beyond what you have. I mean, we're solely reliant on third parties. But for the township, it would be not only getting into the restoration business, we'd then be becoming an entrepreneur with it in the event business, which has me wary. I understand there's upside, but there's also the negative that comes with it, the debt service, and the question of just overall deal structure is do we as the township want to be in a quote business?
Well, I take your point, but I don't see it that way. I think if the township's a landlord, I mean, I've known a lot of landlords that don't know anything about large venues and restaurants, but yet they'll lease it out to an operator for a long lease and collect rent money, and the operator, it has to be structured right. I agree with you. The township cannot be an entrepreneur. It cannot get into the event business, but it can be a landlord for someone who can run that. And to be clear, if this were the concept, the township would be obligated to put this kind of idea out for competitive bid. It wouldn't be,
Sure.
I mean, Mike would obviously be bidding on it and have a good position to bid on it, but it would be, looking for an operator to operate it. I agree with you. The township can't suddenly start running a business, but it could be a landlord.
Let me.
But landlord, yes, but I guess the other differentiator would be a developer, right? Where a landlord, if you have an asset, you lease it, maybe make some improvements. When you get into development business, we're talking about site plan approvals and every, more speculative type work.
Oh no,
that was my point.
No, the point's taken. I'm not disagreeing with the point. It's just
Yeah,
the magnitude. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Dennis and Jim, I think the theme here is we are in the event business.
Yeah, perfect.
We are currently your operator and have been for 12 years. And the township is in the business of golf and events now currently. They have a liquor license. We manage it. That doesn't change in this concept. It's just another outlet for us to operate and manage, which just gives us the opportunity to generate more revenue. The fact that there is an outlay of cash that's a substantial amount of cash, then you go into, does the town want to outlay all that money to do that and then lease it out to an operator, or is there an option to go in with a known party or try to do something like this if that wasn't an agreement? So, I'm not going to give you the answer of, what's the right way of doing this day one, but I think the fact that, the township is already in this business, it's not changing the business model beyond creating a better, more, substantial outlet for events.
Understood.
Other questions, from the committee? I know we've gone on here for a while, but it's an important topic. And other questions while we have Mike on the line? Okay. Hearing none. Mike, thank you very much. We do appreciate it. We know it's always, it can be a little scary to put out a concept like that without, it's not, we don't view it as a tangible proposal.
Yeah.
We know that it's too early for that. But we wanted to kind of pressure test the concept, and you've certainly helped us do that. So we do appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, sure. Happy to help, and look forward to continuing discussions.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right, very good. If we could go on to the next agenda item, which is discussion of the report outline. I wanted to share my screen here if I'm savvy enough to do that. Okay. So in the report, the draft report outline, I want to talk about, because we've taken a couple approaches here in the draft report, laying out the various properties, their introduction, their history, etc., and in a vision, potential vision for those properties. We've done it two ways so far, and before we get even deeper into ink on paper, I want to be sure that the committee is on the same page. We've drafted one scenario building by building in terms of what we think might make the most sense for those buildings, and it's a draft. It's not final, but that's an outline. And the other way is to do it in a phased report that what we really lay out for the township, for the supervisors, is a phase 1, 2, 3. These are the steps that we think are important immediately, that the township should initiate after some work is done through those steps. Some of that work being planning and others, and then here's a stage 2 and here's a stage 3. I want to hear from the committee. are you leaning towards the phased approach? It seemed like that, but I hadn't heard from everyone. So I'd like to lock in on that so that we can be most efficient in generating this.
I would go with the phased approach. I think that it's just easier to digest and to organize things. Makes sense.
Okay. Jim, on my screen, you happen to be next. What are your feelings?
No, I'd be in agreement.
Okay.
It makes sense.
Okay. Bet?
Yes, phased approach.
Okay. John?
Phased approach would be the best, yes.
Okay. Okay. Sarah?
Yep, I'm aligned with the herd.
Okay.
Phased approach.
Okay. All right.
Can't
That's
do
good.
everything all at once anyway, right?
Okay. Okay. So just as we start talking about our priorities, which is the next agenda item, because this is a committee, and that, I mean, not everyone's going to be in total agreement on every item, and that's fine. But we want to try to coalesce around some agreements. Overall, I think our guiding principles have been, if we look at this thinking so far, first, number one is it's a given that Patterson Farm remains in agriculture. I mean, it's clearly a top priority use. 183 of the 221 acres are easement restricted to be farmland, and so that into perpetuity. So that's obviously important, and that's what that land is now. And it's open space, and it's beautiful, and it's environmentally important. So I don't think there's any question on that. We also have said that the township, with community support, should do its best to preserve the historic buildings. They're a non-renewable resource. Once they're gone, you can't get them back. And our township is fortunate to have a rich history, and to the extent that historical buildings can be saved, they should be. We've also said that a building without a purpose or without a use is dead, and thus cannot be maintained in the practical or financial world. And so it's been our charter to find uses, to find purposes for these buildings, so that they can be preserved, they can be maintained without a total drain on the community, on the township. Most uses, it's clear, are not going to necessarily give you a return on investment for some of the monies that are needed. But if a use is productive to the community, if it shows a benefit to the community, and sometimes a soft, not quantifiable benefit, and it contributes to the maintenance, it can make some meaningful contribution to the maintenance of the building, then that's supportable. It gives the building a use, and that's what we're trying to balance out here. And so what we said is the committee's recommendations, we're attempting to balance those three things: to preserve history and to preserve the agriculture, to gain community use and support. We'll need community support, financial support in terms of nonprofits and fundraisers and events, and community use, while being fiscally responsible. That's what we're trying to balance out here. And I think it's fair to say, I think we can all conclude, there aren't a lot of great choices here. These are going to be difficult. Right now, Patterson Farm, and speaking of that in particular, has three primary uses. One is One is agriculture being leased to Charland Farms, the land. The second is the township public works is attempting making some use of Patterson Farm through storage of some equipment and some materials in some of the outbuildings. They're a user for sure, as is the two leases to artists, both in the Tunnicliffe cabin and for YOA, AOY lease. So it's going to be hard to picture any of these, turning a profit. Certainly, I think the Slack House in its setting should come the closest to that. But in Patterson Farm, we're trying to find uses that bring benefit to the community and are not a 100% drain on the township. And that's really what we're trying to muster here. Is to find those uses that we think are the community would value, and still preserve agriculture and preserve history. One of the things that's pretty clear as well is there's never been a plan for Patterson Farm. There's never been an organized kind of site plan. I think it's fair to say that all the uses that are there now were done kind of one-off. The farmer said, if you can use a building, please use it, but it's not clear what they have rights to or what they don't. The Public Works tries to use it, and they said, we'll try to stay out of the farmer's way, and the farmer says he'll try to stay out of Public Works way, but there's stuff around, and it's a little bit haphazard. Everyone that's come to use the Patterson Farmstead, I would say, has come and tried to use it the best they can, exactly as it is, without any kind of overall long-term view of the site to say, how could we better organize this? What should there be a driveway over here? Or should kids be playing over there? Or the tractors driving this way? Everyone's being responsible. Everyone's doing their good work as best they can, but it's without a plan, and it's pretty clear that I think we need to stop, pause, back up, and kind of look at the site and say, if we're having these multiple uses there, which we fully expect to have, we need more of a site plan. That's just very clear. So with that, I want to turn to the top priorities as some have seen them. The committee's talked about, trying to prioritize these various uses as best we can between art and history and agriculture and community uses. And I've tried to kind of have the committee specify what their priorities are. And there's 7 committee members. Three have put their priorities in writing. So I want to share those with everyone now, if I can. So these are individual proposals from 3 individuals of the 7 on the committee. I'm going to ask the committee members on the Zoom here to speak theirs. Here is one where a committee member said the number 1 priority is a Satterswaite house, since it's generally in the worst condition, perceived as the face of Patterson Farm. Their second priority would be the Satterswaite main barn. And because this barn and some of its outbuildings, we've determined the farmer can make use of. The farmer has confirmed they certainly can make use of that, and could use the Satterswaith barn as a barn. It will require some repair, some shoring up, some engineering, but it could be used as an active barn. Third is to restore the Tunnicliffe cabin, what we also known as the caretaker's cottage, in a new art studio. This is the historical gem on Patterson Farm from the report we have from the Historical Commission. And this is historically the most significant building on the property. Number 4, essential repairs to the Joseph Yardley House, the Patterson main barn and outbuildings. A pretty general statement. Another set of votes would be number 1, restore the Tunnicliffe cabin in the new art studio. This is the precious piece of history. Number 2 would be the Satterswaith barn and the outbuildings, if the farmer can use them. Third would be the Satterswaith house. And then number 4, develop a multi-phased Patterson Farm site plan, where we're actually organizing the site a little better while respecting the environment and the farmland. Another set of priorities: develop a multi-phased site plan. Based on what I just said before, everyone can probably guess this column might be mine. And because we need to have that broader picture. Number 2, restore the Tunnicliffe cabin, which is, by the way, estimated, and it's a very wide estimate because it's early and people have to get in there, but it's somewhere between $150,000 and $350,000, as opposed to millions for some of the bigger homes. Number 3 would be repair the Satterswaith barn for the farmer. And number 4, and I don't know if this deserves prioritization. To me, it's just a must. Clean up the grounds. We lower the hedge, help the community see the Patterson farmstead, remove the old relics and the junk and the clutter that is stored in so many of these buildings. Both barns have clutter in the second floor. Many of the outbuildings have miscellaneous old clutter that it just needs township elbow grease to clean out. And in my estimation, the property is not treated with the right degree of respect for what it is. It's a important farmland. It's historical buildings, and it's not necessarily always been treated that way. So that's an example of the kind of prioritization that we would like to, as a committee, bring to the supervisors to help them prioritize, because each one of these priorities are going to have a different dollar value associated with it, a different timeline associated with it. I really would like to have the committee talk tonight about, each committee member talk about what you see the top priorities as being, so that we can finalize those priorities for the supervisors in a uniform way. With that, I would ask any of the members on the Zoom call who haven't contributed to this particular spreadsheet to weigh in. Who wants to go first?
I can go first, and I think I'll put some of this into the doc this week. But I'd say I'd agree with the Satterthwaite house being the top priority. I think that it's clear from the community input that we've had that has been one of the biggest issues, is ensuring that property is maintained, especially the look of the property from the street. It's also a historic property that deserves to be preserved well into the future, I think. Second one I would say is from what we've learned from Charlene Farms, I think ensuring that they're able to use the buildings that they would like to in the manner that they have proposed would be my second priority, because I think that really kills multiple birds with one stone when it comes from a historic preservation standpoint, a building use and utilization standpoint, the original purpose of the property being preserved, and maintaining the historic significance of the property. Then I think for the third, I would also put the Tunnicliffe cabin there as well, ensuring that we get architectural and dendrochronology studies done, as well as the preservation of that. And I would have to think about what one I would put as the fourth, but those would be my top ones now.
Okay. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. Who's going off mute next?
Sure, Dennis, I'll jump in.
Thanks.
I think first, personally would be the Satterthwaite home. I think for many residents, I think it's the face of the property, part of the charm of Lower Makefield with the open farmland and so forth. For me personally, that's not so much the historic element, down to the minutia of how it's done. It's more from the curb. I understand that the degree in which it's and manner in which it's preserved, that may mean a lot of different things to different people. A concern would be without a known purpose of the interior, to spend the amount of money to preserve certain standards is lost on the general public, where it just kind of becomes a monument that's still inaccessible, and that opens the door. Is the facade be rebuilt at a fraction of the cost, still preserve that character, and some of that money best be used elsewhere. So, not advocating bulldozing it, not advocating that it should generate proceeds, but just to what end is the township throwing money at it to preserve something that the public doesn't actually have access to. So that would be one. From a true historical standpoint, it sounds like the Tunnicliffe is I think in your words, Dennis, the gem. I think that's deserving of some attention there. I think fortunately, the Patterson House, it's the artist Yardley, it's relatively stable. I think it's not that it's any less important, but it's maybe just not as pressing given some of the other issues. So, so I get that. I'll go, Satterthwaite cabin, and then maybe just some of the other general cleanup as far as what's the if we don't do anything, what's the end game plan of some of those outbuildings and just keeping them cleaned up and stable.
Thank you, Jim.
I can go, Dennis, if you want.
Okay, thanks.
You had so many volunteers, so I was trying to help out. Okay.
Sorry, I had to do it. I had to pressure.
No, it's voluntold. I gotcha. It's good. The Satterthwaite house, obviously, I'm aligned with everyone else on that being a top priority. I also think it's the hardest one of them as well, because I think in terms of use and it's probably the most expensive as well to renovate. I mean, it's the most
It is-
costly, probably
it is.
most difficult, and could take the longest depending on the solution. So I think it should be the first priority. The new art studio, that one is just that's just exciting because that's cute. It's got you know, it being the age of the building and being the oldest, it's got a niche, it's got a wonderful projected use that would be for historic. And it's not the reason I like it for a historic purpose is that there isn't a huge amount of overhead because the building isn't that big, right? So that can be maintained in its the way it is. It's not this gargantuous building with a ton of square footage that requires a lot of maintenance because the building is not that large, right? So it lends itself to that. So I like that solution. What I really liked is the one communication you had on making there be a comprehensive farm site plan where it kind of really outlines who's using what, and then about some of the other transportation issues with if you had multi-uses for those, where's everyone gonna park, go, how they're gonna get there, all of that. That would be what I would say would be the items in reading this that I would be excited about or prioritize, I guess. I think you can get a very quick, very nice win from the new art studio that the community would appreciate because it's interesting.
Sarah, when you're saying the new art studio, there was parts of it. I mean, I thought you
It's
were
so-
also talking about the Tunnicliffe cabin.
I'm talking. That's what I'm talking about. I keep saying
The
new
tun-
art studio.
yeah.
Thank you for correcting me.
Okay, okay.
I mean the it's currently an art studio.
It's
but
currently, yeah.
correct. That's
That-
sorry. Thank you for clarifying what I'm saying. I
No,
kept
no, no.
it's mind over matter. I know what I'm talking about, but I keep reading and saying it the wrong word. So yes, you know I'm talking about the oldest house, right?
Yes, thank you, thank you. And then there was Bet.
I gave you my comments. They weren't included.
I'm sorry.
I'm looking at one overarching recommendation. While all of the recommendations are site specific, there isn't any overall recommendation from the committee as of yet regarding proceeding with proposals for the Slack House or for AOI to expand into anywhere. So I'm looking for input from the committee. Should that be a recommendation as well? Maybe that's a fifth recommendation. Or is that part of the overall site plan?
Yeah, and you're making a good point. It's certainly a fair point. I guess in looking at these priorities, in my mind, I think we were looking at the big dollar spends in terms of priorities. I think it's just like it's a given that we want to be supportive of the farmer. It's a given that the lease with the artist of Yardley, that's a good and appropriate use of historical agricultural setting, and that should be encouraged and expanded, but without trying to get into the details of anybody's lease or anything else. I was looking at this more in the context of maybe the big dollar items. I mean, those are important. I think as someone said, the continuation of the Artist of Yardley, having a great art center there for the community, young and old, is very favorable. That's very important. It's not where the township's going to have to spend a lot of money. I guess that's what was driving this kind of 1, 2, 3 was almost the dollar spend priority. So if that helps you.
Yeah, but Let me just ask Dennis, did you not get my recommendations?
I did not see them. I apologize. If I got them,
That's okay. I mean,
Yeah,
I'll send them to you
okay,
again.
okay. No,
Not a
I'm
problem. But I mean, my
been
overarching
1,000
thing
emails. Yeah.
is to generally, move forward with some sort of these cooperative agreements that are on the table, because there are viable uses for buildings on the properties.
Mhm.
Then the Satterthwaite main barn, and for the farmer, if he's still interested, and the Satterthwaite house is a big issue. It's going to be the most expensive. From what we've seen from recommendations, the supervisors will have to make a decision as to what they want to do with that, potentially even putting out, RFPs for that renovation. But the property is in poor condition. So
Yeah.
I'll leave it to the supervisors to decide that. And the Tunnocate Cabin, I know Chase Worthington did the estimate that is very high, $150,000 to $300,000 to restore it to a very high standard of restoration, I think.
Mhm.
I think that there is a midway in there as well that could potentially work without giving the whole cabin over to the Historic Society, but I don't know. Maybe during renovations, you'd have to find alternate space for Colleen and Tara, but that garage has no infrastructure, has no insulation, has no floor. So there's a great deal of investment that would be needed to provide her an alternate art studio. Okay, and I think a lot of the stabilization things are things that we had recommended initially back in the fall to the township supervisors. I think it's just a matter of waiting for the weather to finalize for things like the gopher ruts in the barns to be filled in and that sort of thing. And, the trash and debris, I agree with you absolutely that there has to be cleanup, and things have to be painted in order to ensure that they're going to be around a little bit longer. And that overall site plan, I'm an environmental planner. I'm absolutely sure that I want an overall site plan, because the compatibility of uses is important. We don't want to get in each other's way. We want to make sure everybody's safe, including our youth campers during the summer, and that's of course the busiest time for the farm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to log off, Dennis, but I'll add the history stuff to our recommendations document and put in my priorities. I'll send them to you. But
Oh, great. Thank you, James. I know it's very late where you are, so we appreciate it. All right.
yeah, all
Good
right.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, well, thank you for that. That's good discussion. And maybe a couple of you said, I know Sarah did. The Satterthwaite house, I think everyone sees it as a priority. The biggest challenge there is the expense, and then ultimately the use. That we're struggling with that. I would say there's two buildings that right now we are most struggling with in terms of a use. Most of the buildings we could envision a inappropriate use. Whether it's art or farm or storage or something, but the two biggest challenges right now is the Patterson Farmstead barn, which is going to be very expensive to repair into usable condition, but very important building. No one wants to see that go away. And the Satterthwaite house, because we've said if it doesn't have a purpose, it's dead, and let's not put money in it. So it needs a purpose. I think it's very safe to say as a committee, we've concluded that, historical museums are a strain at best. We think that the Tunnicliffe House is worth that risk because it's in much better condition. It's much, much smaller, much less expensive. It's right close to the artist community. And I think there can be some synergy there with, with public traffic, et cetera. So I would ask the committee to continue to think long and hard and do your homework, checking other bases for use for those two buildings in particular, because those represent challenges. And I have
Dennis?
new information on the Satterswaith barn in terms of the weight bearing requirements that I want to give to I need to send that to the engineers. I think the actual use of that barn, will be different than perhaps what the engineers assumed when they gave us their current estimate. I want to push back on that to be sure that the way the farmer sees it being used and the way the engineer assumed it would be used are in fact compatible. So I'll get that new information to those engineers.
Dennis,
Yes.
on the Satterthwaite House, excuse me, if and when we present to the Board of Supervisors, are we recommending a use or simply saying, yeah, we like it and we ought to reserve? What are we talking about? We've really not come up with any clarity for it.
The closest thing we've come up with so far in terms of a use is that if it be saved and the exterior be saved, but the interior be renovated so that it will be compatible for office use, and that the township occupy it, the township use it. The township could use more office space. I think it's going to be very difficult to lease that space to as commercial office space. I think it's a bit of a stretch. Not to say that it couldn't be tried, but that would be, I think, difficult. And if the township's going to want to maintain that, so far that's about the best use we've come up with. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying I'm crazy about it. I'm looking for something better, but we haven't come up with it yet. We're still open for ideas. Let me ask Jim, didn't we talk about or have recommendations from some of the real estate people about putting out an RFP for commercial office for the facade to be saved, if not replicated, with new materials, and then putting back in more of a more modern office space? I'm sorry, who was that question to?
I thought it was to, well, I'll take it from you or from Jim Scott, who's a real estate person. So.
The real estate people said that would be a better potential than certainly than residential, but they weren't that optimistic about it. Like I say, it is an option. It's a very expensive option. It would be paying a lot for an office space that relative to the expense that it would take, and that it might be superior to have the township occupy it, and just rather than try to get into a commercial lease, which would not likely come close to paying back.
Yeah, I think the question, but I think there's two things. I think it gets, if the township used it for office, it's two birds, one stone, right? So then we get the building to be up to snuff, to look nice, presentable, and LMT can get office buildings or office space, I guess. But I think the other thing, I think you're talking about RFP. You're just talking about getting quotes on getting the building repaired and what it would actually cost. Is that what you're asking about?
Well,
I don't know. Bet kept saying an RFP. I think you're asking if
I'm just saying if the township put out a proposal to see
Right.
if there were actual interest. I mean, we haven't done that. We're just talking amongst
Well, an RFP
ourselves.
would be that we're gonna hire somebody, right? So you would say that you're asking them to, you propose to, that we're gonna pay them to restore the township will be paying them to restore the building, right?
As
It's,
opposed, what's the
right.
other option? The other option is what, to sell it? That's not.
Yeah, and nobody, I think from the real estate assessment, nobody would residentially want that location because of what it would cost
Right.
to repair it.
Right,
And
but
to
a
get it up to
commercial,
livable, and then you're still sitting on the road without really a lot of private.
right, not sell it for residential, sell it for commercial because of its proximity to the interstates and other commercial buildings.
It's
Yeah,
very
it's
so expensive.
I don't
And
know.
Betty, I think the challenge would be for general, say, commercial space, is there are other options where, just up HOC Road, somebody could buy a small office condo for a few $100,000.
Right,
So, and I would say, even should the township have a need, it would probably be more cost effective to have the township simply purchase office space elsewhere that was turnkey, ready to go, not subject to cost overruns, and
right,
have a more functional
office
space.
space.
Right now, that doesn't solve the problem of what to do with the home. It takes us right back there, but I would, I have a sneaking suspicion that the cost kind of creep and that slippery slope would escalate a lot quicker by the time you get into, you have office, need parking. Now we're doing asphalt, now we're doing stormwater. It's got to be handicap accessible. We're building ramps, we're building elevators, we're doing handicap restrooms. It opens Pandora's box to try to make that a functional space.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to renovate it at 1.5 to maybe $2 million to do all of that. That
The
square footage
estimate-
for
the
office
est-
space is very high.
Right.
The estimate is 1.75 to 2.5.
Yeah, so that makes
And-
it
and-
very expensive office space.
Well, compared to what you could get for that square footage, like what you would pay for that square footage, yeah, for sure. But it's kind of like it's the sunk
problem-
cost. If the township's going to put the money in the building, they would get some return by being able to not have to pay rent somewhere else for office space, would be the thought.
I mean, we've even talked about what it would take to simply make some of the most critical repairs and mothball it. And it's not, in my mind, that's not really feasible because every repair ripples into the next. Everything is they're all touching each other. You try to fix this roof and then that wall is there. And then you got the foundation, and then a building in that poor condition, that age, it just keeps rippling. And unless it's being actively used, and that's what our challenge is,
Right.
heated and occupied, you're going to keep doing what the township's been doing, which is, not
Right.
desirable whatsoever. So it's about finding that use, and that's been the struggle.
My concern would be to pay to repair it and then have it still be vacant. I feel like you're just kicking the can, and then to have it vacant is kind of the worst scenario because it's vacant, so it doesn't have that general everyday touch from somebody that's in the building. And
there's no sense in repairing it if you don't know what you're going to do.
Right. It's an option. It's just not probably a great one.
It's
Right?
not a great one. Yeah.
Yeah. And on the Satterthwaite side, you still have a series of incompatible uses potentially. You have the mulching operation, you have the farmer in the barn, and then you have this other building in the front that is adorable, and the people love it because they've seen it and they drive by it all the time. But again, without a use, $2 million is a lot of money to invest.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. And there's also a beautiful house in the Joseph Yardley house. I mean, that's a striking house. The Slack house is a striking house.
Yes.
So it's got to be more than that to compete for the resources. Okay. We've circulated, let me stop sharing this, and we don't need that up there. Other recommendations from the that the committee wants to discuss right now? Anything that we haven't covered? I am, I know it's hard, but I have been looking for some volunteers to share some of the writing load. There's a Slack house section that could use some ink on paper. I've given it an outline, but I haven't tried to put any dialogue to it. If anyone's happy, I'm happy to share that. Hearing nothing else.
Dennis?
Yes.
Hey, it's Ben. You want someone to write up the Spirit Golf proposal? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, that'll be attached. It's more a write-up of, you know, the kind of the introduction to the Slack house, what considerations or what things we've considered, and how we've narrowed down the likely uses. You know, we had the real estate assessment for residential. It's just kind of telling that story that led us to the conclusions we're coming to.
I'll do that, but I can't do it till next week.
All right. Well, so I'll take it. We're scheduled to present to Fred and the rest of the supervisors on March 2nd at the supervisors meeting, 7:30. I don't know where we are on that agenda. We'll find out in due course, but I'm presuming, Fred, that you would like the full committee to be on that Zoom.
I would appreciate it.
Okay.
I think it would show the township that and its residents, you know, the importance that we are putting on this endeavor, and will help us make the decisions when the time comes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Fred, how is all of this stuff shaping up to your viewpoint?
I think you guys are doing a great job. I'm looking forward to the second. You were going to say something, Beth?
No, I thought you were going to say the second committee. I was gonna
No. This is the one and only committee, and
Okay.
You know, I think you guys are, you know, to get to where you are in this amount of time is, I think, is fantastic. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Fred. Is there any other business the committee wants to cover, or any issues from you, Fred, before we open it up for public comment?
No, I think you're good. The only thing is with the Satterthwaite's house, you know, if selling it to somebody for use is off the table, the board will deal with it, you know, with that. So if I'm hearing you correctly, that sounds like that the township will be keeping possession of the home and dealing with it one way or another.
Yeah, I think you know, you asked us to look under all stones and consider everything, and we did. And I guess we're not seeing a scenario where a sale is really that feasible, attractive, in any way, shape, or form, given the micro location factors and the condition of the home. we don't see it as that feasible an alternative. Is that a fair summary, committee, the way I said it?
I think
I would-
that's
I would-
fine.
I would still like to see the township look further in terms of real estate options that we're not able to do as a committee.
Fortunately, the township has resources now, and it also has need for space. So,
Okay.
you know, if after we evaluate all the options from the committee, you know, that becomes, say, a public works headquarters for the township, and I'm just using that as an example, so be it, because as we all know, we must have that use to maintain the building in good shape. So,
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
we're not worried about restoring it. We're about maintaining the building in perpetuity, or for the useful life, you know, as long as we can.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Fred. Erica, we'd like to turn to public comment period. Are there any public comments?
Yes, we have a few. I can bring Allison into the room right now. We have Allison in the room with us now.
Hello, this is the Ad Hoc Property Committee. Who are we speaking to? We're not hearing you if anyone's speaking. Erica?
Allison, it
Hi,
starts with,
hi,
there we
hi,
go.
sorry. There I am. I was muting, so I didn't interrupt anything. This is Allison Smith. I'm the president of AOY. As an existing user of the property, I was hoping that the report would highlight both the benefit of having an art center in the community at all, and the thriving nature of AOY right now. We've come through COVID. We've doubled and tripled our shows, our number of students, our revenues, and just our outreach to the community in terms of how many people are just coming to classes, to shows, to buy art, we're using local vendors to achieve all this. The concept of having a cultural center is that it sets the identity. It sets the community apart. It makes it much more unique. When you think of Wayne, every local attender of museums thinks of the Wayne Art Center. It just reverberates as an important piece of that community. And I think that AOY is well on its way to being that for Lower Makefield. For the art itself, over and over, we read articles about the value of art to people suffering through PTSD or wanting simply to thrive in their lives. And we're bringing that to people. We're about to set up a program that gets art out to kids who are underserved. We have a camp that has 550 kids coming through in the summer. The thing that I want to say is we have continually set goals and achieved them. And our newest goal is a fundraiser that has a model that we are going to be following exactly by using the people who set the business up originally in Southampton, and which is a significant profit center. And the thing about having AOY do that is that as a nonprofit, it's all going to go back into the property. And when I say significant revenue, I'm talking about six figures. And when you think about what that could achieve for, building renovation, restoration, and maintenance, it's a nice thought. When Beth brought up the pack house, we are very interested in the pack house and in the Patterson Farm barn. And the pack house is something that we could move on immediately in terms of, and I understand the conflict between its use by the farmer and by AOI, but we would be bringing additional revenues to the township. We would be expanding just that sense of cultural center that Lower Makefield owns, just the being of, and we would be able to reach out to kids, most especially, a lot more by being able to renovate the pack house. And our proposal is that we would be paying off the renovation over 10 years while still paying rent, and then continuing on to pay rent. For the barn, the idea of a community center that brings people onto the property to appreciate the beauty of that barn through different artistic endeavors, whether it's studios, presentations, dance recitals, musical recitals, etc. It's not pie in the sky. It's completely achievable with, good investment, and AOI can be a big part of that. When I read some of the comments, right now we've been existing cooperatively with the farmer. I believe that we can continue to stymie our ability to grow and make money just to keep our existence going, so that the farmer can be more profitable is something to consider. I think we can continue to collaboratively exist together while still making use, positive, good, solid use of the buildings on the Patterson side. I'm hoping that because we exist there now, some level of writing up what the benefit is to the community is included in the report, so that people are thinking about what can they contribute to the township through their continued existence on the farm. I think it's so important, and it could be such a happy partnership with all parties to living on the farm. That's where I'm at.
Thank you, Allison. And you're saying as your organization grows financially, your organization's very willing to put those resources into the property?
Completely willing.
Okay.
And for good benefit. I think that we're willing because we see what we can achieve by contributing that money to preserving the buildings.
And as an organization, are you, can you envision the way that you would bridge your current art programs, communications, education initiatives, etc., how you could bridge that a little more into history or in the direction of history to complement, the Tuna Kloof, the Cliff cabin or other historical features? I mean, is that, it seems, I don't see a lot of that now. Is that something that you envision being able to do?
Yeah, I had never thought about aiming programs towards history. We have all enjoyed, and the grace of the Janney House has been part of what keeps bringing people back. So we should create something that celebrates that. The barn especially, I see it staying as beautiful as it is now, so that as people just come in to experience it, they're walking into history. But we can definitely do programs, do shows that focus on the farming and history.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just thinking out loud. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Allison. Erica?
Yes, I will bring Colleen into the room now. Colleen's in the room with us now.
Hi there.
Hi, Colleen.
I just want to say thank you. First of all, as you guys know, I am the artist in the little gem on the property, the caretaker's cottage. And I love that you call it that because in truth, I have been lovingly caring for that cottage for 12 years. I have a pest control contract on it, alarm system, insurance, the oil is filled. You know, if there's anything wrong, I'm the first one that sees it. I'm the one that alerts them. I would like to think that part of the reason that that little gem of a building is so stable is because I have loved it for 12 years and I'm totally aware of everything that's going on there. Bob is in my cell phone as Bob. And, you know, when I call, I don't call often. I'm a very quiet tenant. I pay my rent often. You'll see since COVID, I would pay, you know, 2 months at a time. But I just really wanted to point out because I'm next to a thriving, amazing art center. And I look pretty tiny over there, but I'm not really that tiny. I have workshops that I have that people fly in from California and Arizona for 1 day. And when they come, they don't stay for 1 day. They stay in our hotels, our Airbnbs, they eat in our restaurants, they shop, they rent our cars, they patronize businesses. And that's just the 1 day workshops. And then I have a few that are weekends and they come in from all over the country. I also have online workshops where I teach globally. I get national press. I've been on NPR. I've been in national art magazines that are in Barnes and Noble. And that studio, our farm is also part of that. So I know it may look like a little tiny building and I'm kind of quiet and Betty will tell you I kind of keep to myself over there and I'm super busy and, but I also feel as if it's been open to the public. Like with COVID, it's been a little closed, but that is a building that I have had Trenton City kids in. I've had city kids in. I've had Girl Scouts in. I've had kids groups. I've had I host events for groups of parents who are dealing with loss, who are dealing with addiction in their children. Just as Allison pointed out, art is key for healing. You know, we as a country and as a township have gone through loss and grief, and we need a place to really process that. So I feel like what I do there is in complete synergy with what AOI does there. And, you know, I can speak for AOI and myself. We don't go near the fields. I mean, you know, a pumpkin could hit me in the head over there and I'm not going near the fields. I'm not like, there's such respect between us and the farmers. And I just feel like we honor this property because there's so many people that come into this property and learn about history because we are there. And I think we've really missed an opportunity in that you're dealing with 2 buildings that are super stable because they are so loved, but there's not signage on the property. As far as my cottage has been totally, there's nothing inside that speaks of history. The outside is where the history is. And yet there's not any sign outside my building. I would be happy to have people to share that history. You know, I try as often as I can to actually create outside people, you know, people just to think that people travel from all over the country to get to that farm to create art. So when you think about like, oh, well, we'll just turn that into someone just walking through and we'll show them a kettle in the fireplace. It is a lot more than that. It is so much more than that. So I just wanted to make sure that, that I got before you and I said that this is a building that's stable, it generates money and it generates tourism from all over the country. And I just wanted to be super clear and to say thank you. I love the history. I'm just eating it up over here. It's fabulous. So thank you.
Okay.
I had one question from you. What is a new art studio? Like when you guys talk about my
Oh,
little.
we,
caveat, you use the
we've
word
talked
new
about,
art studio.
there's other buildings on Patterson Farmstead, like what we've labeled as the first garage, the garage on the right-hand side of the driveway as you come in, that would be suitable to be renovated into, it's a suitable building to be renovated into an art studio, as is the Pack House. So if the art center is growing, the art on the farm is growing, then those are buildings that are obviously suitable to be renovated into those for that use. They're not ready for it now, but with renovation, utilities, heat, air conditioning, etc., they could be. That's how we're viewing it. Would you agree with that?
I can totally agree with that. I just see that as like a really big thing to pull off over there, when you have two stable buildings right now. And especially since I feel like there is public access on the farm. So, just a thought, just to kind of speak up for the arts over here. It is vibrant on that farm. So
thank you. I'm glad
thank you for your work. Thank you for your time.
Glad you called in. Thanks.
Yeah.
Erica?
I'm moving Kathy into the room right now. And Kathy's with us in a room now.
Hi.
Hi, Kathy. Who are you speaking to? Sorry.
I'm sorry. It's Kathleen Herco. I've called in before.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. I've called. First, I called because I wanted to thank you for your work, but the last few calls have made me change a little bit about what I'm going to say. And I'm sorry, but talking about AOI for me is totally inappropriate in this setting for this committee. The task of the committee is to figure out how to save the structures that are in danger on Satterway's farm, not the structures that are stable right now. That's my opinion. For me, listening to these meetings, I've been listening to all of them, I just think it's a total conflict of interest to have a board member of AOI on this committee, and the priority here is to save the barns and the structures. And I just feel that barn is meant to be used by a farmer. The art center is not what this committee should be focused on, maybe down the road, but the task here is to save the structures that are in need of repair. And originally, I just wanted to thank you for speaking up for the Satterway House. I think you've got it right. I think, the committee is here to figure out how to save the buildings. And I think you got that right, that's your top priority. I think you realized it. And Patterson Farm is so important to our community. And we want it to be saved as it is, to continue to be used by the residents and the farmer. And I just please recommend to keep this farm intact, the buildings and the history of this farm. That's important to so many people in this community. And I think that is what this committee was put together for, to save what is in danger right now. And thank you. I just got really upset about it, but I originally wanted to call in to say how grateful I am, how I enjoyed your presentation and your priorities tonight.
Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate it.
Dennis?
Thank you so much.
Dennis?
I think part of the
Dennis?
Yes, Bet.
I just want to clarify for the record, I am not a member of the board of AOI. I am an employee.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you're what?
I'm an employee.
Employee?
Yep, I'm not on the board, Kathy. Never
Okay.
have been.
I just really feel that it's a conflict for me, that we should be speaking about renovating buildings for the artists. I have nothing against artists. I think it's a great use of the farm over there, but right now, the priority is to save the buildings that are in danger, not to create new art studios. And I think that this committee was put in place to try to save the buildings that are in danger.
I would say, with all due respect, Kathy, that's part of it. The committee was put in place, you're right, to save the buildings in the long run, which only means they have to have a use. Saving the buildings isn't nails and concrete and mortar. Saving the buildings is figuring out how they will be used in the long run, because the two buildings on the Patterson Farmstead, I mean, we have a 20-year case study. The two buildings that are in best condition, that aren't an issue, as you just said, the caretaker cabin and the Chaney house, are not an issue because they're used. The buildings that are an issue are unused. We're here
Right.
to save the buildings in the long run by figuring
And
out
find a use
how
for
to
the
use.
building.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so if an art studio is a use for one of the outbuildings, that will save that outbuilding. So
That's perfect. Yep.
Does that make
makes
sense?
total
Okay.
that makes total sense. But that to me is not the task at hand. The task at hand is to save the buildings that are in danger, to find the use for those buildings that are empty, not to talk about renovating buildings that are already structurally sound. I think that's later down the road.
Okay.
Kathy, I think that's consistent with what's been discussed. I think the focus in it, as Dennis viewed in the chart, I think the prevailing feedback has been just that, to stabilize those buildings.
Right.
I think very little time has been spent on the building occupied by AOI.
Yes, and I loved your presentation. I think you're right on point with the presentation. And like I said, I originally called in to thank you for all your work. I just think that the meeting took a turn in a different direction. But I appreciate your report and your recommendations.
Great. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Erica?
We have Joe joining the room now. And Joe's in the room with us now.
Hello? Joe?
Hi, Dennis.
Who is calling, please?
Dennis, this is Joe Camerata, Chair of the Historical Commission.
Oh, Joe, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. You know, Dennis, I've heard said in this venue and in other meetings that historical museums are not financially viable. But I have to say that flies in the face of what we see in our own county. We can go to other townships in our county and we can see where they have museums that are dedicated to their township history. So I would say that they are viable. Now, they're not viable as one of the previous callers said, if all you're going to do is show people a kettle on a fireplace. But what we see as we look at those museums is that it's a mix of programs, events, memberships, all of these different revenue sources come together. It's not an easy proposition, but it is definitely a doable proposition. You know, if we look a little bit beyond Bucks County, we can find in the preservation community other examples like curatorship programs where historical properties have been both restored and preserved using private money instead of public money. Now, I don't want to take away from the committee. You have the right to make whatever recommendation you would like, but I would encourage you in your report to the boards of supervisors to at least talk about these types of opportunities that exist, because they are viable opportunities that should be considered in further discussion.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. I mean, as the head of the historical commission, are you interested in the Tuna Cliff cabin as we've laid out the prospect for restoration of that? Is that what's your?
Well, that would be up to
reaction?
the historical that would be up to the historical society. They're the nonprofit. We're a commission that serves the board of supervisors.
Okay. Okay.
Dennis, Joe makes good comments. However, you know, it is a possible option if a nonprofit historical association with the resources wishes to make one of the structures into like the Satisfied House into a museum, has the resources to occupy the building, help maintain it, and have a long-term lease with the township to do such, to have such a museum. But and that, I mean, that's always an option. But as we've seen in the evolution of the committee's proceedings, the option is it's a small possibility for that to happen. I mean, we go back to our first presentation with Jeff Marshall, and even though that is an option, it's very difficult to find a group with the resources to maintain a building or be interested to maintain such property over the course of decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think,
But
I mean,
if somebody came forward, I'm sure you would add that into your recommendations.
Absolutely. I mean, Jim and I were talking today about if there's a historic nonprofit that has the wherewithal to take on the responsibility, or we'd be interested in working with them. But it's a tall order. It's
Yeah, I mean, the very first thing we heard is from Pennsbury Manor. They get almost $1 million a year from the state to maintain the building, because what they get in admission fees doesn't pay for the maintenance. So,
right.
We ask for the township to subsidize that kind of maintenance year by year, is a tall order when we can, use it for township office space. But I'm sure that the board of supervisors, if we had such recommendations, would seriously consider such an option.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Your point's well made. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Dennis, if I could add, kind of consistent with being apprehensive of entering into the event business at the Slack House, I'd be equally wary of the township taking on a similar task. I think it's outside the primary focus of what the township is meant to be. But should a group come with money in hand, I think sure, that's a best case scenario. But it's been my understanding, at least, that we've gotten to this point because it hasn't occurred. So if that's not the case, agree that'd be a wonderful outcome.
Yeah. Good. Thanks, Jim. Thanks. I mean, Jim has experience in these kinds of real estate dealings and transactions, so I appreciate your voicing that. Erica?
Yes, we have Laura coming into the room now. Laura's in the room with us now.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. I have to agree. I was very interested in Joe's speaking about the historical commission and the vision for the farm. I think two of the things that I don't hear of being considered for the Satterthwaite House is the connection to the farm. So has there been outreach to agricultural colleges in Bucks County and beyond? Could there be an endowment through the school, a partnership, so that they could have a physical structure that could be used for research, staff, a fellowship? Is there any outreach to what was talked about in an earlier meeting, the Quaker connection historically? Reaching out to serve that community with providing access for research, a fellowship in the land that supported their history in farming. Those seem to me to be a focal point for the Satterthwaite House, especially as the face of Patterson Farm. I think you're underestimating the community's interest in having a connection with the community on agriculture. I have no interest in that, the idea of the slack house for developing a bigger access for events, as to the extent that they're talking about. And, you know, just even the land use and the wooded area being sort of just dismissed, all for constructing a barn, which may be in vogue now, but who knows what in 10 years, with pandemic problems in the future, how will we have open space? Will it still be served as we're used to it? There are all kinds of concerns on that end, but when you're talking about a structure that to me is the face of Patterson Farm, the first thing before you look at it for an office building for the township would be, what's the connection with the land? It's got to be agriculturally oriented. So I'm sure there must be some possibility of reaching to these colleges and universities that have agricultural programs that may be able to form a partnership so that you keep something within the same community. That to me would be a critical number one. And the other thing is, when you're talking about a museum, it doesn't have to be, there's a portion of, I believe, the Satterthwaite House that's the historic older area. Perhaps that becomes the dedicated focal point for groups or programs or events to tie in the whole idea of the farm and the preservation of it. And then the other areas within the building, which are not historically accurate or have been, brought in over time, could be used to house anything that's going on with a college, a fellowship, writers. It would have a bigger purpose. Perhaps it's as simple as a bed and breakfast for those who are participating, even within the art studios. When Colleen was talking about having people come in and they're staying within the town, if you have a critical person coming in and doing a presentation, perhaps that's where they stay. Have it be alive with what is happening on the farm. You don't have to look outside if you can keep it within the building structure. Bring the arts in, bring the colleges in, bring agriculture in, have that be the basis of what that Satterthwaite House would be used for. Have it directly connected to the land. You might not be housing a family anymore, but you're hosting a family of people who are participating in a community and who are contributing to the life and breadth of those buildings on that farm. And to me, that's much more long-term. And if the community might be able to coalesce around this, because it is the visual face. And if you're going to restore it and you're going to have craftsmen possibly donate their time, if the materials are provided, they'll have a stake in this. And it will be much more accessible and fill the need of what the township's purpose was by making it an open space and saving it from development. If the township doesn't want to become a landlord, if it doesn't want to be tied to the development end, then keep it as open space and work to make the community be the central focus and see where that will take you. And I'm grateful that you will shore up, and I hope look at the Southwest House. Nobody has seen the inside, so we don't even know to what extent. If you're just looking at the outside, just don't write it off that way. It is the face of the farm, and you're going to do it. It would be a disservice to sell it short for that. So I thank you for your time, and I hope there's another caller after me. And
Laura,
I'll be of interest. So,
Laura,
go ahead. Yes.
can we have your full name for the record, please?
Sure. Tarantino. It's Lora, Tarantino, T as in Teresa, Arantino.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Erica?
There's no more public comment.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you, Erica, and thank you for everyone who's called in. We genuinely appreciate your interest and also appreciate your thoughts and ideas. There's no one has a corner on every good idea, that's for sure. So the more the better. If that's the end of the public comment, then let me close that. And Bet, have you been able to keep some notes, some action items or assignments from tonight's meeting?
Yeah, how come I have the only assignment to follow? Why is it? So I'm writing up the Slack House story.
Okay, and James was going to submit 2 pieces of information.
He was doing the historic piece and his recommendations, officially sending those in, and I'll send you my recommendations as well that I did send. But what about the actual presentation? Is it a PowerPoint or what else needs to happen in the next 2 weeks?
Well, I think that the next step is we want to we need to finalize a report. I'm going to take the prioritizations, which I've taken down here this evening, and try to put those together, and I will circulate a draft executive summary to this committee for your review. Please look at that, mark it up, weigh in, call me, email, whatever you need, so that we can coalesce around some decisions. And then once we have that, I'm confident that I can put that into a summary PowerPoint with relative ease. It's really getting the meat of it and the meat of the report that is going to be important. So if we can all agree on that, then the PowerPoint will flow from that. And again, I will circulate that amongst the committee as well, and have your way with it. I mean, I'm the oldest one on this committee, and there's some of you, I'm sure, that would be much better at making something look pretty and sing and shine and dance off the screen. That would be great. I'll welcome that too. Okay. Future meetings. Right now, we are slotted for potentially, I mean, in addition to March 2nd at the Board of Supervisors, a follow-up committee meeting on March 10th and 24th at 7:30. I'm operating on the premise that Fred and his colleagues will probably have some questions and issues for us to follow up on after the 2nd. I'd like to dust my hands off and say after the 2nd we're all done, but I'm going to presume there might be something else. So we have 2 dates, March 10 and 24. Do those on the surface, do those work for everyone? I've heard back. Yeah, I heard from John. They do work for Jim. Bet. Okay. Sarah, they work. Okay. Fred is out tonight. But he said they worked for him by email. So let's mark your calendars with for that. And is there any other business? Any other comments? No? Great. Well, listen, it's 9:32. I think it's time to say goodnight. I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
Good night,
Thank you
everyone.
all.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dennis.